Good, thank you. So good afternoon. My name is Chris Smithson, as you all know by now. I'm here to talk about my vision, my company's mission, and to dip into the surface of the work that I've been doing over the past few years. A little background on myself. I started out life with a passion for architecture and software. So it shocked nobody when my career led to becoming a solutions architect and software engineer. We're in the midst of an amazing university right now, and I just wanted to point out every single day of my childhood being told that becoming an architect was a waste of time, that diving into this expertise, learning these things was something that it's been done. And here we are at the footsteps of innovation in an amazing campus. I had a pleasure of walking around and seeing this campus. Thank you, University of North Dakota, for hosting this event and for giving me this opportunity. I spent the last 2 decades balancing my life between that career, my family, and the dream of space exploration. Today, I get to spoil myself a bit and talk about a path toward living that dream. The 7 things that you see up there are inseparable. The mission, fresh air, drinkable water, good food, clean energy, simple medicines, and creative materials. This badge is the Gravity Grains Vision Badge. Our mission is to bring these 6 things to the moon so that we can understand Earth better and explore our solar system together. Our mission focuses on the launch crater, which may be a viable solution in partnership with other missions. There are a handful of curious pits within that crater, but there is no proof of water or area stability. The Indian Reconnaissance Orbiter is cited for that little pit picture. It's about 30 meters wide. And that large oblique image of the launch crater was actually taken from Apollo 16. Apollo 14, when they set down, you may remember about the golf ball incident, but they also identified a higher than average potassium in the area. What has been observed is a higher than average presence of thorium, intermixed with proximity to both lunar highland and lunar mare regolith. For those of you who do not know, the bright, shiny part of the moon is the highlands, and that's where the lunar highland regolith comes from. And then the darker areas, which are more basaltic and volcanic, are the lunar mare regolith areas. And in that ocean, that moon ocean area, there's a high existence of creep. Now, creep is not something you want to be called in your life, but on the moon it's actually potassium, rare earth elements, and phosphorus. There are little nodules in that area. This results in an area that could potentially fuel thorium salt reactors for future space exploration and leverage some of that power to build out a lunar settlement, keep the crops growing, and serve as a low-gravity shipyard and another spaceport for at least the next 100 years. Thorium salt reactors are kind of a mystical thing at this point in time, but they're not science fiction. And when you start thinking about the kind of power generation and getting faster to Mars, faster to the asteroid belt, faster to the moons around Jupiter and Saturn, the ability to have a thorium propulsion system is fascinating. However, I do not want to launch refined thorium from Earth, have an accidental rocket mishap, and have a high-altitude radioactive cloud over the beautiful state of Minnesota and our lovely neighbors in North Dakota. So this opportunity to have nuclear propulsion and nuclear energy on the moon is actually quite compelling, and for anyone concerned about how much radiation that might produce, it is already 30 times the lethal dosage of a human in a launch crater. We can't make it much worse, but we can harness it. More work is necessary to fully understand and characterize Lalande Crater or any other alternative settlement location. But for the sake of this presentation's convenience, let us allow ourselves to walk this narrative. Here, I share a vision of what life in Lalande Crater could look like when Gravity Grains becomes successful in that mission. Over the period of 28 days, taking some time off in the Commons area, you will look up and see the Earth, lunar dawn, sunrise, sunset, and lunar dusk before the Earth phase is full again. Remember, the moon is tidally locked with the Earth, and you're on the Earth-facing side. I can only imagine what it would be like to watch the phases of the Earth through the 28-day cycle. For 5 years, systems we are seeking to develop and researching will sustainably expand this settlement and encompass a full acre of agricultural land per deployment, not to mention thousands of tons of unpressurized exterior infrastructure. This is an inspirational rendering by AI for one of the multiple areas of the settlement. The ability to go for a jog or take a swim or stretch out and reflect on your life on the moon should have options. With each mission, parallel and successive, the capabilities of this settlement will continue to expand, develop additional redundancies, and allow for the notion of permanent residency to be less than laughable. Lalonde Crater is massive but manageable. A settlement taking root here could expand to 3 times the size of Manhattan Island and still enjoy the protection of its high walls. Viability will require robotic missions at first. Between cosmic and thorium radiation, there is enough difference to make initial settlement challenging. There are deep cyclical and intimate relationships across these systems, and one extremely simplified way to observe their synergy is through heat management. To keep some secrets today, we recognize that the systems run anywhere from 3,000 degrees Celsius to negative 250 degrees Celsius, just to create a reality where the settlement is fully functional. The same energy utilized in the heart of the kiln is also used to do things like boil water for water treatment, support thermal mechanisms in waste management, give agricultural zones ideal biome experiences, and keep the habitat from freezing during the long lunar nights. The heat of the lunar day and the cold of the lunar shadow may sound insignificant compared to these extreme temperatures, but they are relatively similar when you assess their durations, surface areas, and volumes. In fact, all of these systems work to complement those fluctuations and maintain a thermal budget. This combination of in situ resource utilization, mission residual utilization, habitat expansion, and agricultural innovations will literally grow our presence on the moon. It is also notable that after years of living on the moon, the products necessary for returning to Earth and returning to orbit must be satisfied. The key takeaway is that it is not the intimate specifics of any given system, but the reality for anything to work in space agriculture, multiple systems must work together. The circularity in the details can be dizzying. If this hypothesis and math checks out, we'll be well on our way to confirming understandings and championing techniques that will have profound impacts on Earth agriculture, space agriculture, and our ability to explore the solar system. The reality of everything I've set up into this point is going to take a lot of work, multiple partnerships, international cooperation, and a consistent focus on becoming a truly spacefaring civilization. If this interpretation of our possible future together compels you, please reach out to me so we can discuss what the potential of space agriculture means for you. Gravity Grains will be a trusted company for state-of-the-art space agricultural solutions, especially for crewed long-duration missions across terrestrial, lunar, Martian, and spaceflight domains. Today we briefly touched on the materials. If you've been in other conversations and around the halls here, we briefly touched on the materials we're developing to build that infrastructure on the moon. That process includes pressurized sections of air full of oxygen and nitrogen, akin to the ratios and pressures in play during the Apollo mission. Lalonde Crater might have some water in that pit, but that remains the biggest constraint of expansion to any settlement. It wouldn't be space agriculture without a focus on food, and I am hoping to share the results of that part of the research soon. Certain products like coffee and fruits take a few years, and I don't know if we can grow meat on the moon at some point from the earlier presentation, but I definitely will not like being anywhere without coffee and perhaps some chocolate. Energy is well at hand if we can harness the availability of thorium at the mission site. Lunar thermal and solar power are also viable options. That's just exploiting the heat difference between the lunar shadow and the lunar surface. And finally, I'll be expanding research into simple medicines over the next few years. Injuries and illness are part of life, and we cannot wait for interplanetary shipments to administer essential care. That's perhaps my weakest subject. I have no idea how to turn a plant into aspirin, but if you do, please let me know. Once we have mastery on these things, there will be few remaining limits in where we can go as explorers. Thank you all for your time today and for giving me a moment to walk this path.